My brother abandoned me when our mom was dying. Then he left me something that changed everything. I hadn't spoken to my brother in almost 4 years. Not since he disappeared after Dad's funeral. He left with his girlfriend at the time, cashed out his share of the inheritance and ghosted the rest of us like we were some bad dream he was happy to wake up from. So when I got a call from the hospital at 3:47 a.m., I knew something was wrong. "Is this Emily Carson?" "Yes, this is Mercy, General. We have your mother here. She was brought in by ambulance, severe stroke. Do you have power of attorney?" "Do think so?" "Yes." The next few hours were a blur. I called in sick to work, rushed to the hospital, and stood in silence as a doctor explained that my mom might never speak again. She was partially paralyzed, confused, and barely responsive. She looked at me like she almost remembered who I was. Almost. My mom and I hadn't always had the best relationship. She was complicated, stubborn, used guilt the way most people use breathing. But she was still my mother, and now she needed someone. Of course, my first thought was my brother, Jason. He lived 2 states away, last I heard. No wife, no kids, no mortgage. Just a freelancing job and a habit of vanishing whenever responsibility came knocking. I texted him anyway. "Mom had a stroke. She's in the hospital. Bad shape. Call me." No response. 12 hours later, I sent another. "You need to show up. I'm not doing this alone." Still nothing. I didn't expect a reply, but I hoped for one. Mom spent 5 days in the ICU. When she was stable enough, they moved her to a rehab facility. Guess who signed the insurance paperwork? Me. Guess who met with the social worker? Also me. Guess who paid the out-of-pocket costs because Medicaid didn't cover everything? Take a wild guess. I burned through my savings in 2 months. And Jason? Nothing. Not even a text. That's when the idea hit me. It wasn't out of revenge. At least, not at first. It was survival. I met with a lawyer, explained the situation, asked 100 questions. Is there any way to legally make him take responsibility? Financially, at least. The lawyer leaned back, tapped her pen and said, "Actually, yes." And that's when the plan began. I didn't know what I expected when I walked into the attorney's office that day. Maybe just someone to tell me, "Sorry, your brother's a ghost, and there's nothing you can do." But instead, she laid out a roadmap, a legal one. "It's called filial responsibility law," she said. "Not all states enforce it, but in certain jurisdictions, adult children can be held financially liable for their parents' medical care." I blinked. "Wait, that's a real thing." She nodded. "In your state?" "Yes. It's rarely used, but it's on the books. And from what you're telling me, your brother has means. Last I checked, he was designing websites and renting a condo with ocean views." She smiled. "Then this might actually work." The next step was brutal. I had to gather every bill, every bank statement, every record that showed I was shouldering the burden alone. Thousands of dollars in medical copays, time off work, sleepless nights at the rehab center. I also had to prove Jason knew about Mom's condition and chose not to help. Lucky for me, I had texts. And silence. That's all I needed. It took weeks, but my lawyer built the case. And then we filed a civil suit to force Jason to pay his share. I expected him to show up pissed, or at least to call finally. But what I got instead? A subpoena returned unsigned, and an email from a new lawyer, representing Jason Carson, accusing me of harassment and gross abuse of the court system. I laughed out loud in the middle of my kitchen. He lawyered up before even speaking to me, so I pushed harder. At the same time, Mom was declining. The rehab center said she was plateauing. That's code for, she's not getting better, and we want to free up the bed. They recommended long-term care, nursing home level. Another $7,000 a month. I stared at the estimate like it had personally insulted me. I worked a government admin job. Not terrible pay, but nowhere near enough to carry this alone. So when the case was finally accepted for review by a family court judge, I held my breath. Court day. Jason showed up. In person. I hadn't seen him in 4 years. He looked good. Tan well, clean-shaven, wearing some pretentious tailored blazer over a t-shirt like he was trying to dress both up and down at once. He wouldn't even look at me. His lawyer did all the talking. "She's trying to punish my client for moving away," the lawyer said. "Her mother's care is a tragedy, yes. But Jason hasn't lived in that state for years. He's built a life elsewhere. He's not responsible for Emily's decision to handle everything herself." My lawyer stood up next. Your Honor, the law is clear. Jason is a biological child. There is a legal precedent in this jurisdiction that allows financial responsibility to be shared among adult children in the absence of a will or prior arrangement. Emily didn't volunteer. She was left with no other choice. The judge nodded slowly. This is not a common use of the statute, he said, but it is enforceable. I'll need time to review. Weeks passed. Jason texted me once. You're unbelievable. This is why I left in the first place. No. How's Mom? No. Are you okay? Just ego and blame. That text ironically helped our case. Then, the ruling came. The judge ordered joint responsibility for Mom's long-term care. Jason was required to pay half of all existing and future medical costs. I cried in my car for 20 minutes after I read the email. Not out of victory, out of exhaustion, because I didn't want this fight. I just wanted help. I thought that would be the end. But it wasn't. Jason retaliated. He hired a private investigator, tried to claim I was mismanaging funds, that I was keeping Mom in a nicer facility than needed, just to drain his money. He even accused me of forging her signature on some forms. It got ugly, fast. And then Mom took a turn for the worse. The call came at 3:14 a.m. You never get good news at that hour. Miss Carson. The nurse's voice was gentle, practiced. It's your mother. You should come. Now. I didn't even change clothes. Just grabbed my keys and drove through the dark, my fingers white on the steering wheel. I tried calling Jason. Straight to voicemail. Figures. When I got there, Mom was barely conscious. Her breathing was shallow, mechanical. They had moved her to a private room, one of the few kindnesses I could still afford her. The nurse leaned in as I sat down. She might still hear you. Sometimes they do. I took her hand. Cold, fragile like crepe paper. I'm here, Mom, I whispered. And then, like a flicker of light from a dying bulb, her lips parted. Tell Jason, her voice cracked, dry as dust. I forgive. She didn't finish. Her eyes never opened again. But I sat there for hours, watching the heart monitor slow, beep by beep, until it was silent. Jason showed up at the funeral, late. He made a show of standing in the back with sunglasses on like he was some grieving celebrity. People turned, whispered. Our family hadn't seen him in years. Afterward, he walked up to me outside. You didn't tell me it was that bad. I did, I said, flat. You ignored me. He looked like he wanted to argue, but then just muttered, I guess I'm sorry, and walked off. That was the last time we spoke in person. After Mom passed, I thought the legal mess would be over. Nope. Jason tried to contest the remaining medical bills. His lawyer emailed mine claiming, the original agreement is now void due to the patient's passing. We went back to court. The judge didn't budge. He's still responsible for half of everything accrued while she was alive, the judge said. Jason didn't appeal. Maybe even he knew it was a lost cause now. I finally had time to breathe. I grieved, truly grieved, without the constant hum of logistics and cost and anger. But the bitterness didn't fully fade. People said, at least she's at peace. I hated that phrase. She should have had peace before she died. One night, a few months later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a small photo album, pictures from when we were kids. Me and Jason, smiling. Covered in dirt, popsicle-stained shirts, birthday cakes, bike rides. Tucked into the last page was a note in handwriting I hadn't seen in years. I'm sorry I left everything to you. I always thought he'd come around. Love, Mom. That broke me. That note haunted me. Not because Mom had left everything to me that was expected by the end, but because it revealed what I hadn't wanted to face. She still believed Jason would come back. After everything, she still saw him as redeemable. Maybe that's the curse of parenthood. You love even the parts of your children that hate you. 3 weeks later, I saw Jason again unexpectedly. I was at the local grocery store just grabbing wine and frozen dinners when I heard my name. Emily? I turned. He looked rough, unshaven, eyes bagged with sleeplessness. Not the golden boy anymore, more like a man drowning quietly. I didn't think I'd see you here, he said. Well, I still live here. You'd know that if you visited Mom even once. He didn't flinch. Instead, he gave a half nod, like he deserved the sting. Can we talk? He asked. I hesitated. Every cell in my body screamed no. But I nodded. We went to the dingy cafe across the street, sat in silence over burnt coffee, and then he spoke. She always loved you more, he said finally. I raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You were the golden child. The one who stayed. The one who called every week. Who cleaned up the puke. Who wiped her tears. I couldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. I snapped. He looked at his hands. You think I didn't want to? I did. But every time I stepped into that house, I saw Dad's ghost. And hers, when she was still alive. Our father had died years before, after a long battle with cancer. A bitter man to the end. She wasn't like Dad, I argued. Didn't matter. It smelled like guilt in there. Guilt and failure. We sat there for a long moment. You know what hurt the most? He finally asked. What? That she still forgave me. I didn't deserve it. You know that, right? I do. And I meant it. But I also realized something else. He had lost too. Not in the same way. Not with the same weight. But maybe. Maybe I wasn't the only one left hollow. A week later, he sent me a letter. Handwritten. It was an apology not for Mom, but for me. For bailing on me when I needed a brother. For treating me like the hired help in our mother's final chapter. For trying to legally screw me out of half the bills like it was just a spreadsheet and not our mother's life. He didn't ask for forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. I didn't write back. Not right away. But I started going to therapy. Not for Jason. For myself. To learn how to carry the rage without letting it devour me. Because holding on to pain doesn't make you strong. Letting it go does. Even if you never forget. 6 months passed. Life settled into a rhythm. Slower than before. I still worked. Still came home to silence. Still ate frozen dinners while reruns buzzed on TV. But the grief had softened. No longer razor sharp. Just a dull weight I carried quietly. Then I got a call. Blocked number. Normally I wouldn't answer. But that day, I did. Hello? Emily Bennett? A man's voice asked. Yes, this is Officer Troy with the Chicago Police Department. Are you the sister of Jason Bennett? My throat tightened. Yes. Is he okay? The silence lasted half a breath too long. I'm sorry. Your brother was found deceased in his apartment this morning. It appears to be a suicide. The world blurred. I didn't cry. I didn't even move. Just stood there, still clutching the phone, heart hollow. They told me he left a note. They didn't share what it said only that it had my name on it. A week later, I was flown out to Chicago to handle his affairs. I expected chaos, but his apartment was clean. Not neat, but sterile. Like he had packed his life into boxes and left only what he wanted me to see. The landlord handed me an envelope. My name. His handwriting. I waited until I was alone in his apartment to open it. Emily, I don't deserve your time. But if you're reading this, then it means I didn't just vanish without a trace. I never learned how to ask for forgiveness properly, and I won't pretend this makes up for what I died or didn't do. But I want you to know I remembered everything. Every missed call, every birthday I didn't show up for, every chemo session you went to alone, every time you sat beside Mom, holding her hand, while I partied or slept or did anything else but be a son. You did everything right, and I did everything wrong. But you were still kind to me that day at the cafe. That meant more than you'll ever know. There was a folded check inside, $50,000. I stared at it for a long time. He must have sold everything, his car, his stocks, whatever little savings he had. It wasn't blood money. It was peace money. His way of saying, I know I can't fix it, but I can leave you with something. At his funeral, barely anyone showed up. Just me. A few coworkers. His ex-girlfriend, who sat in the back and left before it was over. But I gave the eulogy. I didn't talk about our childhood. I didn't talk about Mom. I talked about regret. About how people live with different kinds of ghosts. Some they inherit, some they make themselves. And about how sometimes forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook, it's about freeing yourself. Update 2 months later, I used the money to start something. Not a big thing, just a small online group for caregivers. People like me. People who get forgotten in the shadows while they care for dying parents, broken siblings, draining partners. It doesn't fix what happened, but it gives it meaning. And maybe that's enough. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.